Hello everyone, welcome to Challenge to Build, and in today's video, 10 frequently asked questions about this machine right here, which is the Lincoln Electric Power MIG 210MP. And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you're in the market for a welder, and I'm here to go over 10 frequently asked questions that I found on this machine that I'm going to try my best to answer for you in this video. Starting with question number 1, and that is, who is Lincoln Electric? Kind of a brief overview of where they started from and how they became Lincoln Electric. Lincoln Electric was founded on December 5th, 1895 in Cleveland, Ohio of the United States. An initial $200 investment was used to develop and commercialize a unique direct current electric motor for industrial applications. What started as a spark of ingenuity flickered and gained momentum. By 1911, John C. and James F. Lincoln invented and launched their first variable voltage arc welder, an innovation that catapulted Lincoln Electric into a new technology and industry that would drive its future success. Each founding brother shaped the organization and left a distinct legacy that continues to define our culture, values, and brand today. 125 years later, Lincoln Electric has become the global leader in arc welding and cutting and is renowned as the welding experts worldwide. With the industry's leading team of experts and most comprehensive portfolio of solutions, we continue to advance innovation and deliver measurable value to our customers and their operations. We also remain true to our guiding principle, the golden rule, and share our purpose of operating by a higher standard to build a better world. By aligning all of our stakeholders' interests through our unique performance-based incentive management system, we continue to generate value and pursue long-term success. And that was pulled directly from Lincoln Electric's About Us page on the Direct website. And there's a really cool interactive kind of About Us storyboard that you can interact with to learn more about the heritage of Lincoln Electric. Now getting into some questions specifically on the machine, and this one is a very popular question regarding stick welding. Question number 2 comes in at, does this machine offer a hot start and arc force option for stick welding? And I'm happy to report that this machine does offer both options. I will come right out of the gate and say I do not do much stick welding. Actually, I haven't done any stick welding with this specific machine. I have stick welded, but I primarily bought this machine for my fabrication in the automotive field. I built a custom frame for my pickup truck that you see back here behind it, and primarily MIG welding, and just recently started TIG welding with this machine, and I'll get into that in just a few moments. We're going to come over here and go to the home screen. It was funny because it was on stick and we were just talking about it. So I'm going to come over here to the stick setting. This is the main control panel. You got your wire speed and your voltage along with the home button. This is your selector with like an enter. You push it for an enter button, and then your back arrow here. So we're gonna, and it shows 120 volts. It automatically picks up on the voltage that it is plugged into. So whether it's 120 or 230, it will ultimately pick up the correct voltage. So we are gonna go to stick and hit stick. This video is not intended to show you how to weld with this machine. Basically just go over some of the main questions regarding it. So now that we are into the stick function, it shows you that you can go electrode negative and or positive. So we're just going to jump right in. This is set up to run 60 and 70 series electrodes. And again, 3/32, 1/8 inch or 5/32 thickness. And right now the output is off. But the main reason I had to go through the setup is to show you, once you are in the setup for stick welding, you hit the center button for options, which then brings up the hot start feature, and then have adjustment for the hot start feature here from 0 to 10. And then along with the hot start, you have the arc force. And again, 0 to 10 on the arc force setting. So that is the question for number 2. Question number 3 is what type and what size electrodes can I use with this machine? And I just touched on it there a second ago, but for this machine, we're going to go back. And again, electrode negative and or positive. And like I said, this machine is set up from the factory to run 60 series and 70 series electrodes. And in the range thicknesses of 3/32, 1/8 inch, and 5/32. So I took basic welding in tech school many moons ago, and I remember learning on 6010 and 7018. And while I haven't done any stick welding with this machine, it is capable of doing those things. Now on to question number 4, and that is, what is the largest spool that this machine can hold? And I have run hundreds of pounds through this machine of 035 wire, and they were on either 10 or 11 pound spools. So using the supplied hub adapter right here, you can run a 10 or an 11 pound spool all day long with no problems on this welder. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. On to question number 5, and where is the welder made? And I am going to talk specifically for the Power MIG 210 MP, because that is the only one that I know of as far as where the origin is from. So this welder was assembled in Mexico. Lincoln Electric is an American company. However, they source assembly to other countries. The Power MIG 210 MP was assembled in Mexico. On to question number 6, and that is, what is the warranty period on the welder? And I pulled this information directly from Lincoln Electric's website on warranty information, and it goes something like this. Statement of limited liability. The Lincoln Electric Company, Lincoln, warrants to the end user, purchaser, of all new welding and cutting equipment, electrode and flux, collectively called the goods, that it will be free of defects in workmanship and material. This warranty is void if the equipment has been subject to improper installation, improper care, or abnormal operations. The warranty period. Lincoln will assume both the parts and labor expense of correcting defects during the warranty period. All warranty periods start from the date of purchase from a Lincoln authorized distributor or Lincoln authorized service facility to the original end user, or from the date of manufacturer if proof of purchase is not available. Warranty periods are as follows: 3 years on all Lincoln welding machines, wire feeders, and plasma cutting machines. Conditions of warranty: to obtain warranty coverage, the purchaser must contact a Lincoln Authorized Service Facility, LASF, for assistance in locating an LASF. Go to the Lincoln Direct website for more information. So that is where the warranty information that I just read came from, and there is a downloadable PDF file in regards to warranty information that covers all of Lincoln's equipment and not just the welders. So if you need more information, I would recommend doing some research on the Lincoln Electric Direct website. Next up is question number 7, and that is, what is duty cycle? And more specifically, what is the duty cycle with this machine? And to answer the first part of the question, duty cycle is a welding specification to determine how long you can weld continuously in a 10-minute period, and it is broken down by percentage. So 1 minute is equal to 10%. So for instance, this machine right here, the duty cycle for this machine goes as follows. Running this machine on 120 volts, the max rated output is at 15 amps. So using this equation, the rated output for MIG welding goes as follows. The current being set at 100 amps, which is 19 volts, gives you a 40% duty cycle, which means you can weld continuously for 4 out of 10 minutes. If you drop the amperage down to 75 amps with a voltage of 17.75 volts, you get a 100% duty cycle, which means you can weld 10 out of 10 minutes. Switching the machine over to TIG welding, and again, we're still using a 120 volt power. At a rating of 125 amps, using 15 volts, gives you a 40% duty cycle, so 4 out of 10 minutes. Turning down the amperage to 90 amps and running 13.6 volts gives you a 100% duty cycle, so 10 out of 10 minutes. Switching over to stick welding, and again, still running the input of 15 amps and 120 volts into the machine, gives you a rated output of 80 amps using 23.2 volts, gives you a 40% duty cycle, so 4 out of 10 minutes. And turning down the amperage to 60 amps with a voltage of 22.4 volts gives you a 100% duty cycle, so 10 minutes out of 10 minutes, or 10 out of 10 minutes. Now I'm going to switch the machine over to 230 volts, and it runs 14.7 amps at a max rated output. The rated output for MIG welding goes as follows. Running 200 amps at 24 volts gives you a 25% duty cycle, so 2.5 minutes out of 10. Lowering the amperage down to 110 amps with a voltage of 19.5 volts gives you a 100% duty cycle, so 10 out of 10 minutes. Then switching over to the function of TIG welding, running 175 amps at 17 volts gives you a duty cycle of 30%, so 3 out of 10 minutes. Lowering the amperage down to 100 amps with a voltage of 14 volts gives you 100% duty cycle, so 10 out of 10 minutes. Rated output for stick welding goes as follows. Running 175 amps at 27 volts gives you 25% duty cycle, so 2.5 out of 10 minutes. And running, lowering down the amperage to 100 amps, running 24 volts gives you a 100% duty cycle. So again, 10 out of 10 minutes. So a lot of information wrapped up within that question. There's actually a sticker here on the back of the panel that breaks down the amperage, voltage, and duty cycle of each process. So that is the overall duty cycle on this machine. Question number 8, what size breaker do I need, and can I use it on a 50 amp breaker? So when using it on 110 volt, having a dedicated 20 amp breaker is best. When using it on 220 volt, a dedicated 30 amp breaker would be best. And the answer, as far as using on a 50 amp breaker, the answer is yes. If you already have a 50 amp breaker set up, which is similar to like a dryer outlet plug, you can run this on a 50 amp breaker because what you should know is this machine will not draw any more than 25 amps. And the reason that I say that, and this is something that you may or may not know, And it's something that I learned when I took this apart for the TIG welding kit. Something that I looked over many, many times when I plug in the gas. But on the back of the machine, there is a little white button below where you hook up the shielding gas line in the back of the machine. And that little white button is what is called a thermal breaker. And when I took the case apart to install the TIG pedal cannon plug, I cleaned the machine and then inspected the machine and found that the thermal breaker in this is set at 25 amps. So this machine, if it gets hotter than 25 amps, that thermal breaker should trip the machine. So having this set at 30 amps is fine, and also having it set at 50 amps is fine. As long as the machine is in good working order and that circuit breaker does its job, it will trip if the machine starts using any more power than 25 amps. So that is the question in regards to what breaker do I need and can I use it on a 50 amp breaker. On to question number 9, and that is, can I weld with this machine using a generator? If so, what size generator do I need? And I can tell you that yes, you can weld with this machine using a generator, because that is how I use this machine, and that is how I've used this machine since I've gotten it, believe it or not. I do not have a main service line in my shop yet. In order to do so, I need to upgrade the power in my house, run a service line, and then get the main service cable run to the garage. And all of that costs some money. So what I ended up doing was getting a generator, because we lose power quite often during the summer and all the storms that we get. So I kind of figured it would kind of fill two needs. One, I would have emergency backup power for the house if needed, and I can run my bigger equipment using the generator. I have a 20 amp line for my lights and one receptacle, and then I use the generator to power my welder, air compressor, and plasma cutter, also my mill. And as far as what size generator you are going to need, I would highly recommend getting something that can run 230 volts at 30 amps. So that is going to be two examples of a generator that you can get is the WGEN5300 from Westinghouse, or the generator that I have, and there's even a review for it on Amazon, is the WGEN9500. It puts out a total of 50 amps, which leaves me extra power. So the reason I got the 50 amp generator is so this way, when I run my plasma cutter and my air compressor, the generator produces enough power for both things to run simultaneously. And what I can do is we can run from the point of origin here, I guess, well, the point of origin would be there, but we can run from the generator. And what I did was I made an extension cord for my equipment, which runs to the wall, to the electric box. From the electric box, it runs out of the garage to the receptacle plug. Then it runs from the receptacle plug using the supplied, or I purchased it, but I bought the generator cord, a 50-foot generator cord that runs from the receptacle box all the way back to where my generator is outside of the garage in the little cubby I built that supplies the power when needed. And all I have to do is hit the remote start button from inside the garage. It starts the generator and I can start to weld. And all of the welding that you saw within this video was powered by the generator. So in short, yes, you can weld with this welder using a generator. As far as what generator, I would recommend getting a generator that can run 230 volt and a minimum of a 30 amp breaker, just so you have enough power. And finally, on to question number 10. If you are still watching this video, I want to thank you for hanging out with me. I know it was a long video. There's a lot of information wrapped up within it. And question number 10 is really no different, because there's about 4 questions wrapped up into this one. There were a lot of questions that I couldn't get to within the time frame that I allotted for the video. But regardless, question number 10 comes in at, can you weld aluminum with this machine? That's part A. Part B is, can you TIG weld aluminum with this machine? Part C is, what type of TIG torch do I need? And D, what kind of spool kit do I need? Spool gun kit do I need for this welder? So let me touch on part A. Yes, you can weld aluminum with this machine. I would recommend getting this spool gun accessory for it in order to weld aluminum. Along with the welding aluminum aspect, this was something that I learned. You can actually TIG weld aluminum using DC current. It is apparently like a lost art, but this is going to be one of them questions that kind of gets a So yeah, you can actually TIG weld with DC current. However, it is not recommended, and I would not recommend even thinking about trying to DC TIG weld aluminum with this machine, because the downside of DC TIG welding is the ability to have the cleaning capabilities with the AC current. In order to successfully TIG weld aluminum with this machine, and there's only specific alloys that you can TIG weld with DC current, but in order to have the cleaning capabilities of the AC current, you need to use 100% helium as a shielding gas when welding, TIG welding, with DC current. The advantages of DC TIG welding is really good penetration within your weld. However, the downside of welding with DC current is the cost, because helium as a shielding gas is extremely expensive. Because helium is so light, you need to use such a high flow rate in order to protect the weld that you wind up using a bottle ridiculously fast. I was actually going to try to learn how to do it, but because of the cost involved, I said, you know what, I'm just going to put that cost toward an actual standalone TIG welding machine that does AC and DC current. So can you TIG weld aluminum with DC current? The answer is yes. It is just not recommended. I'm not recommending going to do it, and I know that the manufacturers don't really recommend it because there's so many variables that are along kind of wrapped up in the realm of TIG welding aluminum with DC current. So that's enough of that. That is why I said to get the spool gun. And the spool gun kit that you need for this is from Lincoln Electric. It's going to be the Magnum Pro 100 SG spool gun. There may be other manufacturers out there that make one compatible with Lincoln Electric. I was unable to find one, so Lincoln Electric is going to be your best bet for that. As far as the TIG welding setup, again, there are aftermarket TIG kits available. I myself have just now started learning how to TIG weld. Definitely not as easy as they make it look. And I'm not terrible. I still feel really uncomfortable. And I got decent penetration back there. I mean, it's not all that bad. And so because of the cost that was involved in getting the additional equipment for the welder, I opted to go with an aftermarket Nova TIG assembly kit. It still had the factory Lincoln cannon plug, which you have to take the case apart and install down here. The one downside is because of how the cable connects, you can't fully close the door, which isn't, you know, a make or break kind of thing. I would recommend buying the kit if TIG welding is something that you don't know how to do and you are trying to learn how to TIG weld. It's a great cheaper option. The one thing that I can say on the downside with the TIG kit is it is a manual style flow control for the argon. So sometimes I forget to turn off the valving. So you will go through argon at a little bit more of a rapid pace. I believe the TIG kit from Lincoln actually allows you to control the flow with the foot pedal. I'm not 100% sure, but I've watched a couple videos of people using the TIG kit from Lincoln, and I don't see the flow control valve on the torch. So I believe at that point you would use the foot pedal with a solenoid to control the gas. So overall, that kind of wraps up. Let's see. I do have the part numbers actually. The Lincoln electric kit, I believe, is K3690-1. And the Lincoln electric also has what they call is a one pack, which is going to be the welder along with the TIG assembly to go along with it. And that part number is K4195-2. You will look at my machine and say, well, hey, how come it looks different than what I see in the picture? And that is because simply it is a little bit different. I purchased this machine back in 2017, and over the years I have upgraded it, modified it, and made a few of my own changes to it. One of being I ran over the ground clamp many years ago and installed a new ground clamp on it. One of the biggest and best upgrades that I made for it, probably within the last year, and this is kind of where it gets custom, is I installed a 15-foot torch lead from Yeswelder. This is the Tweako style torch setup, and that was a great improvement for me. It allowed me to have a lot more maneuverability, really, in where the machine is at and having the reach of the extra, I think it's 3 feet longer. So that was a custom touch. However, I had to machine the brass input sleeve in order for it to work. That's why I said it's custom. I installed the TIG welding kit from Nova, and also I actually hardwired my receptacle plug to the back of the machine directly for 230. And then if I want the 110, I have this adapter that I use to switch it over to 110, because I found, for me personally, with how much I move this machine around in my garage, the twist lock plug of the location would hit my bottles. It would loosen up, fall out from time to time. So when I had the case off, I decided to hardwire it and then just use an adapter if need be. And that has been working out great. So sorry for the rambling and the long-windedness, but there's tons of information that if you are in the market, I know that they are not cheap, and I'm trying to give you as much information as I possibly can. Would I recommend this welder? Absolutely. Like I said, I've had it since 2017 and have had very minimal problems. When I first got it, there was an issue with the drive rollers. I had to replace the drive roller inside, and since then I have had 0 problems and have produced a lot of welds, have run a lot of wire through it, and it's a great machine. And all I gotta say is, weld red. I've been using Lincoln Electric for 20 plus years and would highly recommend it to anybody that has been welding or anybody that is looking to get into welding, because the LCD touchscreen makes it super easy with the presets to at least have a baseline of where to start, and then you fine tune from there. And there's plenty of options with run-in, arc force for stick welding, hot start, TIG welding, all kinds of stuff. So thanks for watching. All you need to do now is buy yourself a Lincoln Electric 210 MP. Get out there, go challenge your build. I will see you in an upcoming video and or review.